Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? Edgement's in a job coming to you guys today with another deck tech. So, today we are taking a look at another standard deck, and it is 5-color Door to Nothingness. So, this is just a fun and hilarious deck to play. A lot of people have been requesting it, and I finally decided that I was going to put it together for kind of a casual standard build. It's nothing that I would take to a serious Tier 1 competitive tournament. But it's definitely something that I could see myself playing at FNM just to make people rage. With the amount of playtesting that I've done with it, both online and in person, it's just funny seeing some people react to actually losing the Door to Nothingness. But nonetheless, we're going to break down this deck and we're going to see how it works. It's a 5-color deck. It mainly focuses on green, white, and red. And it also uses blue and black for Nicol Bolas aside from red. And obviously all the colors for Door to Nothingness, but we're going to see just what makes this deck work. If you guys have any suggestions for decks that you would like to see, please leave that down in the comments below. And there's also a playlist in the description where you guys can check out all the previous deck techs that I've covered, and they're all archived there. So the first thing that we're going to be taking a look at here is the mana base. So we're running 24 lands, 4 of them are Razorverge Thicket because we need green early game. And we also need white for some board wiping. But green-white's really important in the deck, and that's where most of the mana costs are focused at. So, play set of Razorverge Thicket. And then the rest of the cards are basic lands. So, surprisingly enough, whenever people look at this deck after I play them, they ask, well, what's your mana base? And I just tell them it's basically 20 lands. 20 basic lands, and then just 4 Razorverge Thickets. So 8 forests, and then we have 3 of the rest of each basic land. So 3 plains, 3 mountains, 3 swamps, and then 3 islands. So we're running 3 of each because, or at least 3 of each, should I say, because in case somebody starts blowing up our lands, we want to have the appropriate mana to be able to do everything that we need this deck to do. At the same time, all we need is 1 green mana to make this deck work. The rest of them can be whatever color we want, but at least if we can have 1 green mana early game, the rest of the game is going to smooth very easily because we can search for the other lands that we need and just make it work based off of the rest of the stuff. But as long as we have 1 green mana, which it shouldn't be a problem. We have 12 lands that produce green mana. We're solid. So that's the 24 land base. Now we're taking a look at everything else in the deck. So we have Door to Nothingness here. So it is one of the main win conditions to the deck. It's a 5-cost artifact, enters the battlefield tapped, and for 2 of each mana, tap, sacrifice it, and target player loses the game. So it's just a hilarious way to go through and make your opponents rage. So we want 4 of them in the deck here in case our opponent gets rid of 1 of them, but we also want to see consistency with them, so that's another reason why we run a playset. I only have 2 of them, but whenever I actually go in and play competitive stuff like FNM or anything like that, I usually borrow cards that I don't have. So if I actually decide to run this at FNM, I can just borrow 2 of them, but I didn't really find any necessity to go out and buy 2 Door to Nothingness, but with the amount of playtesting I've done just with proxies and online, this deck's been doing really well. So playset of Door to Nothingness. Then we have Rites of Flourishing, so we're running a playset of it. Rites of Flourishing is awesome because it's an enchantment for 3 mana, 2 generic, and 1 green. At the beginning of each player's draw step, they draw an additional card and they can play an additional land during each of their turns. So the more Rites of Flourishing we have, the more cards we draw per turn and the more lands we can draw per turn. This also benefits our opponent, but it benefits us even more because it speeds the game along, especially whenever we're playing up against aggro. We can get our lands down there, we can hit into board wiping elements and just stabilize a lot better. Rites of Flourishing is also awesome because you get to draw more cards, and that's one of the easiest ways to just get all the things that we need. So, playset of Rites of Flourishing speeds the game along really, really quickly. Then we have Boundless Realms. So it is a sorcery for 7 mana, 6 generic, and 1 green. Search your library for up to 8 X basic land cards, where X is the number of lands you control, and put them into the battlefield tapped and shuffle your library. So this is one of those cards that I think nobody would expect to see in standard play at all, ever. Especially right now before Return to Ravnica is out and before the Scars rotation. But Boundless Realms is a great card for a deck like this one, just because if we already have a decent amount of lands out there, we can search our deck for the rest of them, or at least a good portion of them, and have the appropriate colors for the cards that we need, like Door to Nothingness or like Nicol, Bolas, Karn, stuff like that. But at the same time, whenever we have 7 mana, we can cast Karn too. But mainly Door to Nothingness and Nicol, Bolas. But Boundless Realms is an easy way to thin out the deck from any lands at all, and also get the mana that we need to win. So we're running one of them, and the other two big kind of ramp cards are Primeval Titans. So 6/6 for 6 trample. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you can search your library for up to 2 land cards and put them onto the battlefield tapped. So it is going to let us search up for our Razorverge Thickets, where Boundless Realms won't let us do that. But at the same time, Boundless Realms lets us search for more. But on the other side, Primeval Titan's actually a creature, and if we need to win with damage, we can win with damage with Primeval Titan, especially because it has trample. So that's one. It's kind of like a positive and negative side to both cards. But if you guys don't want to spend the money on Primeval Titans, especially because they're going to be rotating whenever Scars and M12 rotate in October, you guys can just not spend the money on them and just get 3 Boundless Realms. It really doesn't make a huge difference, but I do prefer it because it's less conditional. So we have that. Then we have our Planeswalkers. So we're running 2 Nicol, Bolas Planeswalkers, 4 generic, 1 blue, double black, and 1 red, 5 loyalty. +3 is destroy target non-creature permanent. -2 is gain control of target creature, and -9 is it. Nicol, Bolas deals 7 damage to target player. They have to discard 7 cards and then sacrifice 7 permanents. So it's a great finisher for Nicol, Bolas to be able to do something as huge as that. His +3 is also relevant because we can destroy stuff like our opponent's Planeswalkers, Oblivion Rings that are getting rid of our stuff, like a Door to Nothingness. There's a lot of things that Nicol, Bolas can blow up, but ultimately he's just a great Planeswalker to have in here. And because we're running such a huge ramp and search for our lands, it would be kind of ridiculous not to run Nicol, Bolas in a deck like this one. So we're running 2 of him, and we're also running 1 Karn. So with Karn, he is a 7-cost Planeswalker, 6 loyalty. +4 is target player exiles a card from his or her hand. That's not going to be as huge as -3 exile target permanent is for us. With the exile target permanent, we get to get rid of conditional and situational cards that our opponent may have that are a threat to us, especially if they're restricting us from winning or are threatening us to lose. So that's one of those ways to just kind of work your way out of a situation with a big bulky 7 drop. His -14 is restart the game and leave in exile all non-aura permanent cards that were exiled with Karn Liberated. Then put those cards onto the battlefield under our control. So it's nice to have an outlet with Karn where you can restart the game, but it doesn't happen that often. If we're really badly losing, we can restart the game, but like I said, it doesn't happen often. So we're running 1 Karn. Alternate ways to win, Devil's Play. So we're running 2 Devil's Play in the deck for X amount of mana and 1 red. Devil's Play deals X damage to target creature or player. If we have a ridiculous amount of lands already, we might as well just burn our opponent for X amount of mana. And it also has a flashback, so we can do like half of their life total in one go, and then the next turn we can do another half of their life total with the flashback. So Devil's Play is another way to win. It's removal if we need it to be. If there's something that's... if we can win in a different sense, like if it's with Door to Nothingness or something like that, we can just burn out 1 card that's bothering us and then win with Door to Nothingness. But I see myself winning a lot with Devil's Play as it is. So 2 Devil's Play is just an ulterior way to win in this type of a deck. And we're also running 1 Bonfire of the Damned. And the reason why this is 1 Bonfire of the Damned and 2 Devil's Play as opposed to 3 Bonfires of the Damned is because with Rites of Flourishing, we're drawing multiple cards per turn. And if it's the second or third or maybe even fourth time we've drawn during the turn, the Miracle's not going to hit off and it's not going to be something that's favorable. So we're going to have to use the X, and 1 red as a source of board wiping and dealing damage to our opponent, which is undesirable, as opposed to Devil's Play. Devil's Play is just it's like a direct fireball where we're just going to, whatever we put into it is exactly what we're going to get out. But with Bonfire, if it's not the Miracle, it's not as good. But if we do hit into the Miracle, it's a tremendous way to board wipe, and just having 1 in general in the deck is a good way to just clear the field against aggro decks. So we are still running 1 Bonfire of the Damned. If you guys don't want to splurge the money on Bonfire, you can just get Devil's Play. Then we have our board wiping. So we have Day of Judgment. We're running 3 of them. It's a easy to cast card because it's only 4 mana as opposed to Terminus, which is 6 mana. We run both in the deck. But Day of Judgment is still something you want to have in here just because it still board wipes. It does what you need it to do, and it gets the job done. It just gets rid of creatures, which you don't want your opponent to have creatures and be able to do things. So 3 Day of Judgment, and then 3 Terminus. So it has the Miracle cost on it, but like I said, with Rites of Flourishing, you don't always hit into the Miracle. In fact, the chance of getting into a Miracle after Rites of Flourishing is really low just because of how many times you're going to draw. But Terminus is still really good for 6 mana, putting all creatures onto the bottom of their owner's libraries, so it's going to avoid undying and stuff like that. So that's the benefit to having Terminus, but I choose to just run both Terminus and Day of Judgment in a deck like this one. So I'm going to put these off to the side here. Then we have Fog, so we are running 2 Fogs in our deck here. So for 1 green, prevent all combat damage that will be dealt this turn. This is one of those cards that sides out a lot for different stuff. We will side in stuff like Faith's Shield if we need it for Door to Nothingness if our opponent's trying to use any artifact removers, but Fog is still really good game 1 against aggro builds because they may have a lot of things that they can swing in with, but they're not going to deal any damage with them. So Fog is just kind of that buffer here while we get our removal that we need. So we can drop like removal, undying triggers, our opponent gets their creatures back. Next turn, they try to swing, we Fog, and then use another removal the next turn. So it just kind of works out. Fog is still really good in a deck like this one. And now we have the ramping elements. So we have Caravan Vigil. So it's for 1 green, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. And it has Morbid, so you may put that card onto the battlefield instead of putting it into your hand if a creature died this turn. Especially with Day of Judgment, you get a lot of really good interaction with Caravan Vigil because it's for 1 green, you can just put a land onto the battlefield. With Rites of Flourishing, even if a creature didn't die and you don't have another land per turn extra with what you could do with Rites of Flourishing, you can just pay 1 green, get another land that you need, and put it onto the battlefield. But if you get around it with Caravan Vigil and you play it outside of your lands per turn that you can play, it's just another way to just kind of work around that, especially if you have more ways to play lands. So we have a play set of Caravan Vigil. Just a really cheap way to get more lands and just to fix up stuff that we need. So, play set of it. We have Rampant Growth because Farseek is good, but Rampant Growth still is the same thing. And the only difference is that it lets us search for forests, which sometimes we may need if we're trying to get Primeval Titan, or even another source of green mana for something like Door to Nothingness if we don't have it for some reason. Rampant Growth is less situational than Farseek, but after Return to Ravnica comes out, if we get split subtype lands, then Farseek is going to be better, obviously, and it'll actually make Door to Nothingness a better deck to run. And then finally we have 3 Sphere of the Sun, so this is probably the most lackluster of cards in the deck just because it's a 2-drop, but it doesn't discriminate against what color we put into it. But it comes onto the battlefield with 3 charge counters on it, and we can tap it, remove a charge counter, and add 1 color of any mana to our mana pool. So that about does it for this deck tech. So if you guys are interested in the deck list, it is down below in the description, as well as the playlist to the previous deck techs that I've covered. So you guys can check that out. If you enjoyed this deck tech, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and a favorite, as well as subscribe to the channel for more daily Magic the Gathering content. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and have a wonderful, fun-filled Magic the Gathering day.